Welcome everyone to another episode of the Shaman's Way podcast. As always, this episode comes from the teachings of our amazing friend and shaman in residence, Cricket. We hope you're enjoying these podcasts as much as we enjoy making them, and I'd like to take just a moment to ask you if you would please leave us a rating and a comment in iTunes or whichever podcast player you're listening to us from. Giving us a rating and sharing this podcast with others is the biggest way you can tell us that you like our show. Now, without further ado, on with the episode.
I had a very interesting experience. A few weeks ago, I was traveling to a place in the spirit world where I have done an awful lot of work over the years. It is in relationship to soul retrieval work, and there is a place called the Land of the Dead. I don't interpret it as being that when I go to the Land of the Dead to retrieve a piece of a soul of a person, so I'm doing a soul retrieval, the Land of the Dead is a place of dead spirits, and the souls of the living get trapped in that place, or get stolen in that place, or get attracted to that place. There's a myriad of reasons why souls end up in the Land of the Dead, and there also seems to be a myriad of reasons that I don't understand as to why souls land in the Land of the Dead. However, there is a certain way that I have traveled in the spirit world in order to go to the Land of the Dead. It is always through. I am always met by horse and the accompanying spirits. We always travel very quickly. It is very dark. Dark is darkness, blackness, and yet you can see perfectly. And horse and the accompanying spirits or beings stop at the edge of the cliff, and I go down the edge of this cliff, and it's a rocky kind of, you've been by the ocean and you've seen not cliffs, but those sandy dunes, and some of them are quite high and they have jutting out stones. So there's definitely a stone structure, but there's a lot of loose soil on the sides. And it is a path like that. And there are times when this power animals who help me in soul retrieval work are with me, and then there are other times when I am alone in this place. A couple of soul retrievals ago, I traveled into the Land of the Dead using the same path in that I had used. I crossed the river and I bartered with the dead immortals in order to get into the Land of the Dead. And I was able to get the soul piece, or retrieve the soul piece. And as I was leaving, in the very usual way that I leave, and had the soul piece with me, crossed into the boat, walked to the place where I ascended, what I need to tell you at this point was I was being chased by spirits who had caught my scent. And it's not the first time I've been chased by vision. What I realized when I got to the top of my place where horse and the other spirits meet me was that I had led a path. And one of the parts of tracking that applies in the spirit world, the same as it applies for you when you travel through the spirit world, is that when you use one path continually or all the time, you leave a trail or a path. And I found in this instance, I had led a path through all my many, many times into the Land of the Dead. I was able to stop the beings that were coming from the Land of the Dead entering into the lower world, or the place of the lower world where I would travel back into this land, and was able to come back safely. So the very next time that I traveled to the land of the dead I could not use that path. Now I want to tell you then that what I did was found another way in, but it was a really strong and important learning tool for me, because the spirit world is forever evolving and your journeys are forever evolving. The relationships that you build within your journeys are ever evolving. Times change, landscapes change. There are aspects of the spirit world that I've never seen before. I am still, after 25 years, enthralled and amazed at the different scenes, the different experiences, the different beings. It inspires me to continue to do journeys because they are never ever the same. There may be a structural similarity, but there are many differences in each and every journey. I never know that I'm traveling to the land of the dead or any place else when I begin my soul retrieval work. I don't come in with any preconceived notions of, I'm going to go here, here, and here. When I travel my usual way from the mundane world into the sacred world to do soul retrieval work, it can go in many different forms and ways. I don't know where the spirits are going to take me. I do know, based on the terrain that I travel through, basically what area of the spirit world I'm going to. If I travel on horse through the darkness, I know I'm going to the land of the dead. I know I'm going to the land of the dead. If I move into the ocean, then I know that I am traveling into the young part or the most hidden part of the person that I'm working with. And there are many other ways in traveling and places to go. I know that my tracking skills are what help me to find them. However, I also know that there is an evolution of relationship between myself and the spirits that gather to help the person who finds my healing room. Over the years, I have been humbled and have come to trust and respect the spirits that come to aid me in finding the soul peace. The journey world is ever evolving. It never stops evolving any more than you stop evolving or your experiences stop evolving. Each rich tapestry that you experience within the spirit world is uniquely related to the person or the situation or whatever it is that you're journeying for. There are imprints of yourself. There are imprints of myself within the spirit world. Obviously, I have a form that I travel in. I have certain accoutrements that I travel with. I change my clothing continually. However, the essence or the structure, the look of myself is generally fairly consistent. I have the ability, as many of us do, to shapeshift or to travel as a ball of light and move where I need to go and get where I need to go without trying. Not that it doesn't involve a certain amount of work sometimes, don't get me wrong. When I say I'm not trying, it's a matter of I'm just going to do this and see what happens. But what happens on the other side is where the trying really begins. So the changing of the pathway into the land of the dead was a very good lesson for me. It is the only place that I consistently go on any basis. There are some other places that I go, caves that I go to find, and there are often caves that I find people in. I have also traveled to spirits that gather dead, such as Baba Yaga. Traveled into the space under her house where she is the spirit. She is between the land of the living and the land of the dead. And so in that ever evolving reality of journeys when I've come in contact with spirits that are responsible for both the living and the dead, and I'm doing soul retrieval work. It is, again, ever evolving. The experiences that I have build on and continue with the rich tapestry of the journey. And what do I mean by that? I mean that for myself, when I have journeyed to a certain point and had certain lessons that accompany me, I want to talk about in a later podcast, warrior. But the warrior aspect is, the warrior in me is such an ingrained aspect of my journey self that it is unimaginable to me not to be a warrior. The evolution of who I am, what I wear, how I feel, how I move in the spirit world, and the very integral skeletal structure of the journey self of me is the warrior. But I did not meet the warrior before I met my deer, and deer was probably one of the most confusing aspects of my spirit world, and that's when I very first began to journey. And my very first spirit kin, my very first power animal was an ever evolving white deer, and it sometimes looked like a white deer, sometimes like a white goat, sometimes it looked like it just shape shifted. And what it taught me was the gentleness, about gentleness. And that was my introduction to the spirit world, was through gentleness, through the east on the medicine wheel, through Thorbon, through the east on the medicine wheel, through Thorbon, through that level of relationship to the feminine, to intuition, to dawn, to morning, all of those aspects. And I believe that the relationship that grew between the deer and the warrior that was awakening within me awoke within me an even older aspect. And I was given a silent teacher in the south part of the warrior, and taught me how to be a very patient warrior and how to negotiate differently than, say, I would if I was brash and young and didn't have a good understanding, so got into a lot of fights, as opposed to being a primary negotiator, but with a really good skill set in case negotiation skills failed. The places that I go, sometimes it is the softness that I hearken to both in the East and the lessons that I'm learning in the West, in water, in the relationship of the deep conscious self, the deep psyche self, deep water, with the record keepers of the whales, with the lessons in the mythology wrapped in mermaids and the trident, the aspects of the water spirits that come with it. Yamaya being the one spirit that I really connect with the most. The evolution of my relationship between the East and the West. So in the East we have illumination and awakening, and in the West we have introspection and the understanding of illumination. And in the center is this warrior. And the warrior is the warrior is for the evolution of the journey, teaches me how to walk in the spirit world with confidence and to be a good tracker, to understand which spirits will gather with me and which spirits I have to be careful of, and the ability to have alert awareness and active awareness. And I've talked about that before. Our ability to be alert on many different levels at the same time. The important component of that, even within the journey over the years that I've trained myself, is that ability to breathe and the necessity of breath. So as I move into my journeys, it is through deep breath. Prior to journey to meet the spirits or send my spirit out ahead of me to meet the spirits that are coming towards me and get some answers or get some ideas in the prayers that I do in my room prior to anybody coming. These are all ways of communicating and cooperating within the spirit world in order to move in places where I need to go or gain information or even hear lessons and messages that have to be delivered to the person that has come into the room, that person who wishes to sit and to change. I have a great respect and admiration for the spirits of the north, but I'm not traveling yet north on the medicine wheel in my spiritual journey. I certainly am comfortable with the lessons of north. But my journey through the spirit, through the traveling of shamanism, has really been an integral aspect, has really been working with the medicine wheel. And it wasn't conscious. Those journeys into the directions haven't been conscious. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that it is only upon reflection and standing back and observing, witnessing how my spirit world has changed and my relationship to the spirits has changed, quite neatly fits within the concept of the medicine wheel, that the understanding, the recognition of a very old form of practice, a very old form of understanding cycles of nature, whether it is the reed hoop, whether it is the medicine wheel, whether it is the crop of rain. These are universal concepts of working with the wheel and the cyclical nature of time, the cyclical nature of life, the cyclical nature of seasons, the year, etc., etc. And we see this reflected in our own lives. The evolution of my spirit world has come from many years of journey work and many years of putting together an understanding of what it is that I'm seeing, what it is I can relate to. And the other aspect of working this long, the other aspect of working what it is I can relate to. And the other aspect of working this long, the other aspect of working in this manner is also that I have a place to stand, which is in the center of the wheel. So in our lives, when we stand present, when we bring our authentic self home, when we stand in prayer, when we sit in prayer, when we meet spirits in the spirit world that have been sent to us by the people we're seeing, the house we're looking at, whatever the case is, from the center of the wheel, you also have the ability to move out. So when I'm centered and I'm in myself, in the journey, then I can travel into another aspect, an element, a direction, something that is relatable. When dark world in the land of the dead, when I am journeying into the oceans and into the waters, I really seem to be birthed out at that point, generally into the very beginning or very early on in a person's life. So I've come to see that relationship as well. If I head in another direction from my anchor point, because all of these places are from my anchor point, I enter into the place of horse from my anchor point, I enter into the ocean from my anchor point, and I journey up through the mountain in my anchor point, and the anchor point being, for me, the most fundamental part of journey work. It is that threshold, the coming from the mundane into the sacred and from the sacred back into the mundane. And usually when you're journeying by yourself and you are responsible for bringing yourself, many times our traditional shamans would have apprentices, neophytes, acolytes to work with them, to help them in trance, to bring them food, to bring them water, to accompany the music, to watch over and tend the needs. Therefore, someone on the outside that was dedicated to the shaman, to the healer, to the medicine person would be the one that brings them back. We don't have that in our dial-a-day 21st century urban rural reality. We are generally working alone. And when we work alone, it is incumbent upon us to ensure that we have certain measures of safety. When I journey into the mountains and I am traveling up into the upper worlds, when I jump into fire and I travel up into smoke, I travel into the upper worlds, I travel again into another place. Oftentimes there is the ability to have an overview of a person's life. When I travel up the steep mountain, I generally get a celestial or star view. So there are very different ways for my spirits to track the person, track the event, track the experience, whether it's past, present, or future. There are various ways of tracking things. This is part and parcel to the evolution of the spirit world. Where you start is where you begin, and where you are is exactly where you're meant to be. And I know that sounds clichéic, but it really does have work will change. The way that you interact in the spirit world will change. It has to, because you are not a static creature. You are forever changing. Your consciousness is forever growing. Your ability to seize, to witness, to relate to become involved with the world around you, the world within you, the world without you, is going to evolve. You cannot, and you do not, you should not, maybe you could, I don't know, but I can't imagine sitting still in my life or in my spirit life either. So I encourage you to write down your journeys. I encourage you to journey. I encourage you to have an experiential relationship with yourself in relationship with the spirit world, in relationship with the spirit world, in relationship with the cosmos, in relationship to the cosmic oneness, in relationship to all those aspects. The evolution of the journey leads me to the ultimate conclusion of the oneness, as well as it leads me to the ultimate conclusion of the absolute separateness and multitude of realities and multiplicities of selves and beings. I don't believe it is one or the other. I believe that in consciousness, in creation, in shamanism, the acceptance of the all and the acceptance of everything really changes as we journey, as we grow, as we meditate, as we breathe, as we learn, as we practice awake awareness, alert awareness of the world around us. As we practice, we also are practicing to be present in that space, that place, and that time. It is equally important to remain focused and aware when you are in a trance state as it is to be focused and aware in a wake state or in a more lucid state. That doesn't mean that you aren't allowed to let yourself go. However, what I really like when I let myself go is to pay attention to what is also going on around me. When I let myself go, can I be conscious enough to smell what's in the spirit world? When I let myself go, can I be conscious of what I'm walking on? Or am I stuck in my head and stuck in my eyes? Do I bring the reality of this world that you and I are talking in, or I'm talking to you in and you're actively listening, or I'm talking to you in and you're actively listening, or you're giving me your kind and fair attention as I speak? can we also be aware of the other things around us? Or do we bring that limitation, that liability with us into the spirit world where we are conscious and visual primarily at the same time, because that seems to be the driving force of our culture, the driving force of our relationship to the world around us. So incorporate texture, incorporate, what does that breath feel like? Incorporate, how do my muscles feel like in my body? Incorporate that. Do I have any smells within this world? You can be driving in your car singing, at the top of your lungs, and also be aware of your scent. You have the ability to be conscious of your senses. The evolution of self, I think, is not only a movement towards the disassociation of the relationship to the external, as much as I think it is an internal and integration relationship of the external forces and the internal self. I think that is the paradox of where we are. I think that is the paradox of the journey. I think it is the challenge that I live with, to be more aware of all of my senses, or my senses at the same time, and to practice that internal world as I practice the external world. It is a journey. It is a joy. It is, I don't know, can be a race at times to find out things. Sometimes it can be a practice of a slow bubbling brook. It can be anything. That is the joy of who you are, where you are in your journey, where you are in the spirits. There's no judgment. There's no time. There is you. There is your relationship. And it is your relationship that counts. I'm just humbly sharing with you my experience with my relationship to my spirits and my spirit world. And hopefully my journeys and my experiences can inspire you. And hopefully my experiences, my journeys, and my loves will help you on your own experience, and maybe help you identify different things about your spirit world, your dream world, even your lucid dream world. What are the visions that you dream about? Who is it that you dream about? These are some of my thoughts. I thank you for listening. I thank you for your kind attention and your wonderful acceptance of my voice in your ear. I turn you back to my ever amazing friend Doug, and I bid you a fond farewell until the next time we meet. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for joining us here on the Shaman's Way podcast. If you have any questions, would like to make a request for a future episode, or if you're looking for other shamanic resources, including free drumming tracks, please visit us at shamansway.net. Until the next episode, be well, everyone.